Hello, everyone. Tonight, we are standing in a hollow of bone-colored trees beneath a ceiling of sky so still it seems ashamed to move. The air is dry, but it carries the smell of wet soil. Beneath your feet, something shifts gently rhythmically, as if the ground is breathing beneath its crust. You are here, and the world does not want you to be. You probably won't survive. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. You arrive near the edge of the basin before you realize it isn't a basin at all. It's a fossilized depression, almost a footprint, but impossibly wider than any creature you've read about in paleontology books. There are no toes, no claw marks, just a long, shallow curve filled with dry moss and the soft bones of lizards. It might have been a nest once, or a stage, or an altar. The trees here wear masks, not made by human hands, more like growths. Flanged ridges of bark in the vague suggestion of a face eye, hollows where insects gather mouths that split. When the bark dries too fast, chins that tremble in the wind. Some of them even look like they're listening. One of them looks like it's waiting for you to speak first. You don't. Instead, you wander deeper where the shadows thicken and a strange pulse of silence seems to hush your footsteps. You hear no birds. You hear no leaves rustling. But sometimes the moss under your feet makes a soft smacking sound like lips parting. Somewhere behind you, something else is stepping exactly when you step. You decide it's just an echo, the kind that delays on purpose. The legend around here is about a mask that grew on something that never had a face to begin with. Not human, not even mammal. The elders in nearby villages say the creature once curled itself around a volcanic spring so hot it turned bone to lace. Whatever it was, lizard, spirit, or secret, it didn't like to be looked at. So the earth made it a face. The face didn't blink, didn't move, didn't breathe. But when people stared at it long enough, they said it began to show other expressions, ones they weren't familiar with. Not anger, not sadness, just something rehearsing emotion. You reach a standing stone that might once have been a column. Carved in its middle is a circular pattern that almost looks like a spiral, except the spiral isn't made of lines. It's made of holes. Mask eyes set in a slow curve. 10 of them, maybe 12. One is larger than the others, and when you line your own eyes up with it, the trees behind it blur in such a way that you see yourself. Well, you think it's yourself. The face is wrong, elongated, empty, too still, and it's not mirroring you, it's watching. Some researchers still argue whether the mask-like growths in this area are just a form of tree disease like witch's broom or cambial overgrowth. But the problem is, no one's been able to sample them. Every attempt at cutting has ended in fractured blades, or researchers mysteriously falling ill, usually with nausea, vertigo, and an overwhelming urge to draw spirals in the dirt. Which is inconvenient, especially during grant season. You sit, just for a moment. You tell yourself it's to study the carvings better, but really it's because your legs feel like something drained the muscle out of them. From this low angle, the forest looks like a choir of open mouths mid-hum. One of the trees still wears a mask that looks suspiciously mobile. You remember something a paleobotanist once said, that some species of prehistoric fungi had stalks that could mimic shapes around them to attract insects. It's not intelligence, she shrugged. It's just the illusion of choice. Still, you start to get the feeling that these masks aren't trying to attract insects. You reach for a smooth piece of bark near your hand, only to flinch. It isn't bark. It's the outer ridge of a fossilized face embedded in the tree like a fossil left in motion. The mask is half-grown, not yet fully formed, but its eye holes are perfectly round. Too perfect. No species carves with symmetry by accident. You decide to mark this place on your map, but your compass has stopped working. When you stand, a thin trail of wind blows behind you, not in front. The leaves don't respond, but something distant does. A faint clatter, like ceramic, like someone putting a mask back on. You laugh nervously. Great, you mutter. Haunted forest, weird trees, and now I'm being stalked by a pottery ghost. No one laughs back, except maybe the ground, which lets out a low hiss when you step forward, as if you've disturbed something buried just beneath its surface. Something that liked its stillness. Something that might remember your footsteps later. As you leave the stone spiral behind you, notice something carved on its back, 4 lines of pictographs. You can't read them, but your brain tries anyway. You think it says it watches the ones who look back. You try not to look back, but as you continue on, the wind presses gently against your spine as if nudging you forward, as if ushering you deeper. And when you pass a final tree just before the ridge dips again into a new hollow, you notice one last thing. A mask has been left on the ground. Not hung, not discarded. Placed, waiting. It doesn't look human, but it fits your face. You don't touch the mask. Of course you don't. You're smarter than that. You've watched enough horror films, read enough warnings in ancient texts, browsed enough late-night message boards full of questionable folklore. You don't pick up the strange object that fits your face but wasn't made for it. Instead, you circle it once, just to see if it's really as symmetrical as it seemed at first glance. It is too symmetrical. Even the grain of the material bone, bark, shell, whatever it is, flows in mirrored lines curving from the jawline to the crown. A face meant for balance, but not for breath. You lean closer. A soft ring of dust surrounds the mask, as if it was recently lifted and placed again. There's a pattern in the dust, tiny repeating dots. Claw marks, no, too uniform. More like teeth, as if something small and many-jawed had turned it over reverently before leaving it here. The air shifts, not with wind but temperature. A sudden cool breath across your cheek. You step back. You're being watched again. This time you don't look up, you don't need to. The feeling isn't from the trees, it's from below. There's a subtle change in the soil's tone, as if it's remembering your weight. Footstep impressions remain a little too clearly and the moss doesn't rise back the way it should. You test one footstep, then another. The ground exhales behind you. Somewhere in the ancient Sahara fossils have been found of fish that used to walk. Tiktaalik rosei with sturdy fins and proto-wrists bridging water and land. Scientists say it was one of the first to leave the safety of the sea and try the uncertain solid world. But sometimes late at night, even the most rational among them admit they wonder what made it walk. Why would it leave a world where it could float, where food came easier and weight was never a burden? Some researchers still argue whether that was adaptation or exile. You remember that now. And it comforts you slightly, thinking maybe that mask like Tiktaalik was simply forced to move on, left behind its sea of silence to find a new face to wear. Still, you don't touch it. You continue past the ridge and the landscape opens not wide but upward. A narrow canyon coils into the rock, shaped like a spiral drawn by a hand that was already trembling. Walls rise on either side, etched with what you thought were erosion lines until you look closer. They're not lines. They're masks. Hundreds. All flattened into the stone, worn and weathered into suggestion. Some are barely outlines like soot shadows after fire. Others are sharp, fresh somehow, as if a face had just leaned into the rock and pressed until it left itself behind. You run your fingers across one. The cheek is rough, the eye smooth. The mouth, there is no mouth. None of them have mouths. Your own lips feel dry. The canyon narrows. At first you think you're hearing dripping water, but the sound has a rhythm. 4 beats a pause. 4 beats a pause. Like walking, or ritual tapping, or a signal meant for something with the patience to wait centuries. You hear it again, this time fainter, as if it responded to your thoughts, then silence. Just long enough to be a joke. You chuckle nervously. It's just an echo, you say aloud. The canyon repeats, just an echo, but not in your voice. You stop laughing. The path leads to a ruin. Low stones walls half swallowed by vines. Whatever it was, Temple Den shelter has long since been digested by the forest. but not entirely. A central plinth remains, and on top of it, surrounded by chalk-white stones arranged in a sunburst, sits another mask. This one is smaller, but it's moving, very slightly, almost imperceptibly, like it's breathing. You don't blink. You can't. Not yet. You circle it once, twice. The mask is made of something you can't name. Not bone, not wood, not ivory. It shifts in color as the light changes gray and shade bronze in warmth. In the sun, it seems translucent. In the dark, it swallows all reflection. You crouch beside it, letting your fingers hover just above its edge. The mask has markings etched into the rim. Symbols, not letters, but not abstract either. A kind of proto-script that feels more inhaled than spoken. You whisper one of them aloud. The mask does not respond, but the forest does. A distant rustle, not leaves. Something drier, brittle, like many things turning towards you at once. You rise slowly. Another joke now gently offered to yourself. Well, at least I'm not lost. The trees nod behind you. All of them, in perfect synchrony. You walk away from the ruin toward a path that wasn't there earlier. Or maybe you just hadn't been allowed to see it. The sunlight dims, even though clouds haven't moved. A strange quality to the air settles in like breath held too long. You glance behind one last time. The smaller mask is gone. The mask is gone, and the white stones are rearranged into a circle, a perfect circle. You don't stop walking now. Something is following, not fast, not aggressive, just mimicking your pace again. You walk faster. It walks faster. You stop. It stops. You wait. And then softly, very softly, you hear it step one more time, just enough to take the lead. You look down at your own feet and realize there are two sets of prints in the moss. But you never heard anything pass you. You smile, a thin, nervous smile, and whisper to yourself, well, at least it's polite. You descend. It's not a conscious choice. The path bends downward, and your body follows without permission. Your feet, you realize, are no longer checking for stability. They move like they remember the shape of this place. Or like something else is remembering for them. The forest behind you doesn't end. It simply grows quieter, as if drawing a thick green curtain across its face. Ahead, the light becomes watery. Pale beams flicker through dense, ancient canopy, and every now and then, you see movement above faint silhouettes, not quite animal, not quite wind. The air smells like lichen and iron. Old blood and river stones. The deeper you go, the more the silence takes on weight. Not oppressive exactly, just full. Pregnant with things unsaid. And there it is again. That sound. Tap, 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 tap. Pause. But now you realize it's not echoing, it's coming from inside something. Inside the hill, maybe, or the trees, or yourself. You test your heartbeat. It doesn't match the rhythm, which should be comforting. It isn't. You emerge into what can only be described as a listening hollow. That's what the ancients called them, natural amphitheaters where sound traveled too well. Even whispers seemed to vibrate from tree to tree. Some Neolithic cultures believed places like this were alive, and that every sound you made was remembered. A scholar once argued quietly in an out-of-print monograph that certain trees here might be evolutionary offshoots of the ancient Wollemi pine. Thought to be extinct for millions of years, the Wollemi was rediscovered in a remote Australian gorge in 1994. The idea that others could exist in hidden pockets like this wasn't impossible. But the masks these trees wear aren't natural. Some are bark, some are fossil. One looks like it was made of compressed insects, their wings crushed into a single glittering veneer. Another is just missing. A mask-shaped void burned into the trunk as if something wore it too long, and then disappeared along with its face. The tapping begins again, louder now, still rhythmic. 4 beats. You begin to walk the perimeter of the hollow, carefully, slowly. Something glimmers beneath a blanket of moss, a row of stones set in an oval, a buried foundation. A ritual path. No, teeth. Stone teeth. Dozens of them smooth and curved like the molars of some extinct herbivore but arranged in the shape of a mouth. You walk its arc, realizing it once enclosed this entire hollow. A jaw fossilized mid-sentence, a fossil trying to speak. The tapping stops. Then, from the center of the hollow comes a new sound. Softer, fragile, breathing. You freeze. It's not yours. It's not angry, not gasping, just deliberate. Inhale, exhale. A little ragged, like it's been asleep too long. Like it's trying to remember how lungs work. You don't see anything, but the center of the hollow feels heavier than the rest. Your eyes try to skip over it. Your ears too. Something is standing there. No, wearing there. That's the only way to describe it. Wearing a presence the way someone might wear a shadow. Not fully visible, but thick. Old. You're not sure how you know it's looking at you, but you do. It doesn't move. Neither do you. Then gently, something brushes your ankle. Not a hand, not a branch. A strip of fiber, woven, plant-based, a strap. You glance down. The first mask, the one from earlier, is now at your feet. But it's changed. The edges are frayed as if aged decades and minutes. The inside is moist, fresh. There are markings now carved deep as if in a hurry. Not letters again, but spirals. Repeating spirals. One of them pulses faintly. A small part of you wants to laugh. You've been gifted a haunted mask. Congratulations. It fits perfectly and comes with free mind erosion. You take a step back, but your foot doesn't rise. The moss has grown around your toes. Not deeply, just enough to hold. As if the forest doesn't want to stop you. It just wants to delay you. Long enough for you to see something. And you do. On the far side of the hollow, there's a carving. Not on a tree this time, but in air. You don't know how to describe it. The space ripples like heat on stone, but the ripple forms shapes, mask outlines, faces you recognize from nowhere. Expressions that don't belong on any living thing. Some are sad. Some are confused. One is smiling, not kindly. You try to look away, but the air is pulling your vision inward, as if it wants to be read. Like a script waiting for a tongue to revive it. You remember what they found in France once, a Neanderthal skull buried with a circle of red stones, all surrounding a hollow space where the face should have been. The mask was missing, but the stones were arranged as if to hold it in place long after it was gone. Some researchers still argue whether it was ritual burial or scavenger accident. You take another step back. The moss lets go. A soft sound rises behind you, like cloth brushing stone. You don't turn. Instead, you ask calmly, almost kindly, not expecting an answer, "What do you want?" The forest does not respond, but the mask at your feet opens its eye holes a little wider, as if surprised you asked. You pick it up. You shouldn't, but it's light, warm, too warm. It hums. Then from the shadows of the hollow, something steps forward. Not entirely visible. A suggestion of limbs, a gesture of head tilt. It is wearing a mask. Your mask. The one you're holding. You don't understand, but it does. It raises a hand, points to your face, then to its own. Then it walks backwards into the dark. No sound, no rustle, no footsteps. Just silence folding in on itself like a page being turned. And the mask in your hands is gone. You don't remember dropping it. You remain still for a long time. Stillness feels safe. Stillness feels obedient. Whatever is here, whatever just looked at you wearing your face seems to favor quiet things. So you stay quiet. You don't move. You barely breathe. You're not sure how long it lasts, but at some point the light shifts again, not brighter, just thinner, as if the world is exhaling through gauze. Eventually you move. A single step, then another. The hollow doesn't protest. The moss loosens willingly now, as if satisfied with what it showed you. You walk out slowly past the fossil jaw stones, past the trees, still pretending to be silent. You don't look back. You've learned somehow that this place is less dangerous when you don't ask for answers. But then you hear it. That same soft ceramic clatter from earlier. Not behind you. Above. You look up. And in the canopy hung like fruit from the unseen branches are dozens of masks, dangling in slow spirals, spinning with no wind. Some are still. Some shift slightly. One is cracked, and the crack runs across where a human mouth might be. Another is empty, but you're not sure if it was ever meant to be worn. You keep walking, because what else is there to do? The forest here grows older. That's not a metaphor. The trees are massive trunks, like tusks bark like layered hide. Each one radiates the sense of having seen too much and chosen to forget selectively. You imagine them, dreaming in rings year after year, listening to the sound of masks being lifted and worn again. You step into a clearing and freeze. At the center is a pool, still, silent, circular, black as absence. There is no reflection in the water, not even the sky. But just beside the pool is a stone ledge carved so precisely it couldn't be natural. The carving on its surface is worn by weather but not erased. Spirals again, a familiar arrangement. And in the center, another mask. You don't pick this one up. You sit in front of it. You're learning. The mask is different from the others. It's not blank. It has an expression, narrowed eyes, raised brow, and something at the edges of the cheeks. Not quite a smile. Not quite fear. It's the look someone gives when they've just remembered something too late. You stare at it. It stares back. A memory not yours presses gently against your thoughts. You see a person. Not a name, not a gender. Just a figure. They are walking backwards into a pool. The same pool. Holding a mask in both hands, they press it to their face and it becomes them. They dissolve. Not drown, not sink. Dissolve. Like ink dropped into water. Then the vision ends. You are breathing too loudly. The pool has no ripples. The forest has no birds. You wonder again if anything has ever left this place after entering. And then of course you hear laughter. Quiet, dry, polite. It comes from the tree line. You turn slowly, nothing. But the laugh continues. Gentle. Repeating, like a loop. You whisper, "That's not funny." The laugh stops. Then something speaks. Not in words, in memory. You remember standing at the edge of this place before you were born. You remember offering your face. You remember being refused. You remember being told to come back when you had forgotten your name. You don't recall any of this, but the memory persists anyway. Some researchers still argue whether memory can be encoded into non-living material fossil stone soil. Others dismiss it as mysticism. But one lab once documented anomalous EM readings in sediment surrounding a preserved mask site. A pattern. Repeating, like a heartbeat. No one could replicate it. You glance back at the mask. It hasn't moved. But you realize something strange. It's made of masks, layered thinly like pages pressed together. Each one older than the last. The topmost is yours. Or someone who looks like you? You reach out almost reverently and peel back the first layer. Beneath it is another face. Older, less human. You peel again. The next one is even older. Shaped like a beak. Or a muzzle. You stop. Because something is breathing under the layers. You don't see it, but you feel the rise and fall. And then you hear something that should be impossible. Knocking. From beneath the pool. 3 slow knocks. Pause. Then one more. Tap, 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 tap. You speak without meaning to, I remember. The pool answers, "Do you?" You stand up. Back away. Slowly. Behind you, the forest is awake now. Trees lean a little closer. The moss has curled into strange runes. The masks hanging in the canopy begin to sway. Not from wind, from agreement. You feel a pull behind your eyes. A gentle suggestion. Wear it. Just once. Just to understand. Just to remember what you once were. You turn from the pool, and in front of you, blocking your path, is yourself. Not quite. The figure is your height, your build, your clothes. But the mask is wrong. It's twisted, melted almost, dripping slightly. It doesn't speak. It lifts its hand, then points at the pool, then at its own face. then at yours. Then it steps backward, into the water, and vanishes. No ripple, no sound, just gone. You close your eyes. You do not scream. You do not run. Because you know you've done this before. You wake up. Or maybe you don't. It's difficult to tell anymore. The light has changed again. Pale and orange as if a fire were nearby, but there's no heat, no smoke. The trees now grow in spirals curving inward toward a central point that doesn't seem to exist. You walk toward it anyway because walking away has never really worked here. Around you, the forest breathes differently. Heavier, slower, it inhales through roots, it exhales through bark. And somewhere above, something continues to hum, faint and directionless like a lullaby meant for creatures that no longer sleep. The mask you thought was gone is in your hand again. Of course it is. It's dry now. Light. The carvings on its inner surface feel like they were made for your fingerprints to trace. Not letters, not symbols, just paths, worn in by repetition, a familiar ritual. You look up and see a structure you didn't notice before. A platform of stone. No stairs, just narrow ridges spiraling up its sides. Steps not meant for feet, but something else. Something that glided or slithered. But you climb them anyway, one cautious step at a time. Each footfall stirs up a bit of ash. You don't know what burned here. You don't ask. At the top of the platform, you find the circle, a ring of standing stones. 12. Or maybe 13. They seem to shift slightly when you look away. Each one holds a mask. None of them are the same. One is made of twigs bound by sinew. Another looks like it was carved from the back of a giant beetle. One has no face at all, just a smooth curve like a river stone taught to forget. You approach the center. No ceremony waits for you. No voice, no chant, just a shallow indentation in the stone. A place where something once knelt and kept kneeling. You feel compelled to match its shape. When you lower yourself into the hollow, the mask in your hand warms again. It no longer feels foreign, not heavy, not haunted, just inevitable. The trees hush, the humming stops, and the silence does not feel empty. It feels ready. You raise the mask. But just before you place it on your face, something changes. A shadow moves across the ring, fast, low, like a bird, but nothing flaps. You turn sharply, too sharply. The mask tumbles from your hand and lands flat in the center of the circle. And then it splits. Down the middle, a clean line, as if it was never whole. Inside is a smaller mask, child-sized, smooth, featureless. You pick it up. It feels like forgetting. You hold it for a long moment, trying to remember what you're supposed to do. Not just now. In general, your own name slips a little to the side like a wet leaf peeling from bark. The circle of stones hums gently now. Each mask begins to tilt one after the other, facing inward as if nodding, acknowledging, approving, inviting. You place the smaller mask in the center. You step back, and the forest thanks you, not in words, in wind. A breeze stirs the canopy for the first time in what feels like hours, maybe centuries. The spiral trees lean outward. The moss recedes, and you see it. An exit, or an entrance. It's never really clear. As you begin to walk, you don't feel watched. You feel escorted. The masks do not move again. The platform fades behind you. You do not remember climbing down, but eventually you reach a ridge, and on the other side is something familiar. The first hollow, where the face-shaped trees still wait, and they're resting gently against a stone just as before, is your mask. But now it has a mouth, not smiling, not frowning, just open. You leave it there. You don't need it anymore. You've already remembered everything you were supposed to forget. And just before you leave the forest, you hear one last sound, a knock. Just one. Soft, from far below. It's not a warning. It's not a threat. It's a welcome. Or maybe a reminder that the forest still knows your shape, that the masks never forget a face they've tried on, that you were always going to return. And next time, you won't need an invitation. You walk beyond the final tree into a light that feels new but smells old. There is dust on your skin that wasn't there before, dust from stone that crumbled long before names. Behind you, the forest closes like a breath held too long. No branches snap, no footsteps follow. But you feel the shape of something walking beside you, quiet, polite, wearing your shadow just loosely enough to pretend it's not. You reach the edge of memory and look back. There's nothing there, but your face is still missing, and the trees are smiling, quietly, as if remembering a bedtime story you once told them.